Let's start off with a mind game, or a Gedunken experiment. Pretend you're the general in charge of the southern forces of this piece of land in question. You've been pushed back until you have around 10% left of this peninsula. Your main capital, Point A, has been taken. It is the center of communications for the army, which is precisely the reason the enemy forces are using it for. You want to retake that point in order to turn the tides of warfare. Point B is the main city you have left over. Should you try to retake Point A through Point C, a city just 25 miles away from Point A, and connected through streams but heavily guarded with artillery and manpower and with strong currents and landing obstacles. Or Point D, a strategic military air force base below Point C, which is closer to your own border. The majority of people might have picked Point D, due to less prospective danger and risks, but it would not have changed the tides of war so quickly. Point C was the most risky option presented by a real-life general to his superiors in the 20th century, and against all odds he was able to persuade his superiors to eventually take the crazy gamble. He ended up saving a nation-state's sovereignty, preserving its heritage. Many of the things that are of great relevance to contemporary society may not even exist had this risky gamble not taken place, such as K-pop, Samsung, Korean drama, Hyundai, and all the other technological and entertainment advances. We are, of course, talking about the nation-state of South Korea, ranked 13th worldwide in terms of gross domestic product, with high rankings of literacy, transportation system, and human development index. It is very possible that the entire nation-state would not prevail, affecting nations on a global level, had General Douglas MacArthur not taken a stand for the implement of his very own Operation Chromite. The Korean War was a conflict from 1950 to 1953 between South Korean forces, with the help of the United States and the United Nations, against North Korean forces, with the help of Chinese troops. While the United States echoes the cries of the United Nations to rally to help protect the sovereignty of a member nation-state, the true motive was to delay the communist movement. Another victory for the communists would mean a major paradigm shift, in which many people globally accept communism as an inevitable consequence for all the exploits of capitalism. The Americans sought to prevent that, and therefore joined in the conflict. What they did not realize was the intensity and the ferocity of the fight, and the American troops were pushed back, losing South Korean's capital, Seoul, until they had roughly 10% left of the Korean peninsula. General Douglas MacArthur, then the head of all military movements in East Asia, had to come up with a plan, quick, to try to maintain morale of his troops and push back enemy forces. Let us go back to the Gedunken experiment. Point A is Seoul, Point B is Busan, Point C is Incheon, and Point D is Kunsan. Most of MacArthur's colleagues believed that Incheon had way too many artillery defenses and geographical obstacles to even attempt a landing. They believed that landing on sites such as Kunsan would be a lot less risky and would provide a slower but definite advancement on North Korean territory. While MacArthur was aware of these difficulties, he still believed that an amphibious landing on Incheon was the best option to retake Seoul, just 25 miles away and connected with roads and streams, quicker with fewer casualties. General MacArthur also planned to take care of enemy artillery, soften up their manpower, and improve landing conditions with an Operation Trudy Jackson, which would eventually proceed with great success. MacArthur had many opponents who opposed his plan, calling it an unnecessary risk of American lives, but MacArthur stood strong on his opinions of a quick, swift turn of the tides of war. This is how the meeting is described.
Three of us who were planning staff were asked to give three different reports to John MacArthur. One of the planners, one of my colleagues, said we should attack right at the front line with the North Koreans. The second said we should go deeper, about 10 kilometers further up the boot. I went 25 kilometers up the boot. John MacArthur listened to all three of our reports, and he looked at it and he said, "You're all pusillanimous."
After many drafts and meetings, he was able to finally convince his superiors, including other chief generals and President Harry Truman himself, to sign off Operation Chromite, and gave him full liberty to pull in Marines from American bases all over the world. MacArthur's reasoning behind his operation was actually fairly simple.
Incheon, because he says they will not have the place well defended because it's just going to seem to be just too hard. Second, as I discussed earlier, if you manage to seize Incheon and move inland relatively short distances, you've seized Kimpo, and even if you don't take the city of Seoul itself, you can cut the rail and road lines to the south of the city that are supplying the North Korean forces. Because the 7th Infantry Division, which was the last unit left in Japan, again is under strength. And they came up with this idea of Korean augmentation to the United States Army. So what they are literally doing is taking South Korean conscripts and integrating them into the United States Army to provide additional manpower. Needless to say, this is challenging because, there's the language difference, there's the training level difference because most of the South Korean troops are brand new into the force and they're being integrated into a standing U.S. Army unit.
Arguably, Operation Chromite helped the American and South Korean forces gain the upper hand of the war. By using an amphibious landing on the city, not reinforced with more men due to the belief that it was too strong to topple, the previous capital was reached and surrounded. With communication breakdown because of the recapture of Seoul, North Korean forces are completely disorganized and without an authoritative voice to lead them. They hastily fell on a retreat, with enemy forces striking through the heart and a second army fighting from the borders. Soon, on July 27, 1953, an armistice was signed by the two sides, ending the bloodshed. The ending of the war on America's terms proved to many people that the communist takeover of Asia wasn't a fait accompli. Many people rushed to the aid of anti-communism, which may have contributed to the fervor America experienced during the Cold War, eventually ending with the space race and a man on the moon. The sovereignty of South Korea was guaranteed, granting the nation-state access to economic and political opportunities, which is seized, considering its position in the world currently. However, the costs were steep.
They have the trenches in the front. Then take Cemetery Hill. I got up to the top of the hill. It was the top of the cemetery. I started digging. I dug out bones. I'm throwing out the bones to get into the hole. That's the truth. We had to dig in because the fire was coming down. No matter where you are in the cemetery, you never know where you are.
손끝에다가 난닝을 보잖아. 그냥 막 술탄 뚫려 가다 보니까 난닝을 그래 우리 분대장이 그게 이제 그걸 뭐냐면 항복이라 손끝에 옵니다. 그 나중에 이렇게 이민근인데 내가 맞아가지고 날아가고 있더라고. 그 나를 보더만 너무 미국에서는 내가 이게 그걸 보니까 눈물이 팍 나니까 내하고 같은 또래라 겨우 19. 근데 그때만 해도 뭐 어떻게 동족심이라고 있어가지고 저거 왜 우리가 저렇게 싸워야 되겠나. 내가 또 만약에 거꾸로 됐다면 어떻게 이렇게 미국 사람이 옆에서 왜 우냐기라 뭐 저기다 이러니 저기지만 he's Korean too. 그래서 한국 사람이죠.
There is no definitive answer to whether or not Operation Chromite changed the world for the better or worse. Millions of lives were lost. Animosity between the two neighboring nations with similar cultures and customs exists to this very day. However, at the end of the day, one thing is for certain. General Douglas MacArthur's stand against his superiors in opposition to proceed with his amphibious operation shifted the train tracks of world history to a completely different direction, permanently.